the day after I shot my first crossbow deer, first deer ever in archery season. It has become a little bit of a tradition for me to go out the next day and relive the details of the hunt and kind of show the area where I'm hunting. So this hunt took place in the very back corner of our farm. It's about a 6/10 of a mile walk from the house. And as you can see, we have corn planted this year. So I'm at the back corner of this cornfield. The neighbor over there, those woods were logged about, I'm guessing 6-7 years ago. So it's very thick back in there, and the deer like to bed in there. And then I'm right on the fence line with the neighbors on the other side, and I'll show it a little better when I get up in there, but the other side neighbor over here has miscanthus planted, and it is thick as thick can be back in there, and the deer like to bed in there. And that miscanthus field runs parallel to the whole length of our field here. I have to say I have great neighbors on both sides here. Everyone hunts, everyone respects each other, everyone lets each other track on the other person's land. I am truly, truly blessed to have such awesome neighbors. So that is why I don't mind setting up on a fence line, because even though I did not need it in this case, if I do need it, I know that I can track over on my neighbors. So here's my set. I set up on the ground in this case, and we'll go over here. I'm right in between that maple tree and that oak tree. And the maple tree, 20 some years ago when we bought our farm, had a homemade stand up in it where someone had nailed boards to get up in there. And of course, 20 years in the future, that has all rotted and fallen out of place. And so the first time that I was out here hunting this fall, I started up this little ground blind. And I just kind of expanded on it when I hunted each time. But here's the view from inside the blind. And that direction over there is south and east a little bit. And that's where the wind was coming from last night. So this is the direction I was facing. This is about my view. And I had deer come out a little before 5 p.m. right up the edge into the corn, about as far as I can see, which is really only about 80 yards up there. And one deer moved right into the corn, and then a doe and fawn came out, and they fed there for a while, and then eventually they started working their way toward me. And it took a while because they went in the corn, and then they came out of the corn, and they just kind of moseyed up. Well, as the doe got closer, she saw me sitting here. I'm not totally concealed, but I was not moving at all. And she just kind of did that curiosity thing and kind of walked toward me, and then she'd relax and she'd go back to eating, and then she'd look again and she'd walk a little closer and she'd go back to eating. But eventually her and her fawn worked up, and I'll go up there, but there's a trail about 15 yards that cuts over into this miscanthus, and they took that trail, and I had to actually lean over to get a shot. She was right in that gap there. And let me go up there and step over. So I shot right between this gap here. And she was standing somewhere in here. There's a pretty big wide gap in the fence here that goes into the miscanthus over there. There's some holes in the fence over here. So this is a really old fence line. So anyways, she was standing over here. There's my ground blind. And when I shot, she was facing this direction. So I shot her on her right side, and she spun around and took off back on this mowed path. And it was really nice having snow because first blood is about here. And we had no trouble following the blood trail last night. The temps have been above freezing all night, so the snow is melting. We've lost quite a good deal of our snow cover overnight, but you can still see the blood trail. She's bleeding the whole way down. She took the bolt with her. It was not a pass-through, so I was a little bit leery of how my shot was. And still getting some blood here, but a little thinner. And so I actually went back to the house, and my husband and I ate dinner, and we waited a couple hours and came out after dark. Still seeing blood here. I have to measure and see how far she went. I'm going to walk the distance. I was guessing it was about 80 yards, but I'm not sure. So now we're getting into where the tractor came to pick her up last night. But there's blood there. And then there's a really main trail right here, which I think is where they came out of. But she started veering over into this thick stuff here. And we found blood back in there, and eventually I actually had to go down that trail and come around from the inside because I couldn't get in here. But she didn't go far once she got into this thicket. And we had to make a little path to get her out. But right in there is where I found her. So it's a gut pile. Nothing's touched it yet tonight, or since last night. Anyways, that's the story. I've gun hunted since the mid-1990s, got my first deer in the year 2000 with a gun, and solely gun hunted since then. And this is the very first year that I have picked up a bow. It's a crossbow because I'm old and have bad shoulders, and there's no way I could pull a compound bow back. So fortunately, my state lets us use crossbows during archery season. I've been hunting as much as I can to try and get a deer this year, and success. I am one happy camper.